Hey y'all, it's Angie. Welcome back to my channel. So, am I the only one that has noticed that there's been like 50 million foundation releases here lately? I'm like, why are all these brands coming out with new foundations? It's like it's foundation season or something, like it would be football season. It's foundation season. But it's got me wondering. I'm looking at all of these, seeing all of these, wondering, would that one work for me? I have some information that might help you. So if you're 40 plus and you need some help with finding the perfect foundation, stick around. Okay guys, I have my notes and I have a lot of them. I wrote a lot of them. So if you see me looking around, that's what I'm doing. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I cover everything. Okay, ready? Here we go. The first thing that I think you need to know when looking for the right foundation for you is to know your skin type. So there's generally 4 different skin types. We have oily, dry, combination, and normal. I don't know how much I need to explain these, but if you're oily, you're gonna be oily all over your face. If you're dry, you're gonna be dry all over your face. If you're combination, you're gonna be both of those. Like me, I'm combination, and I tend to get oily in my T-zone and right on either side of my nostrils, on my chin. Normal skin, I don't know that I've ever met anyone who said they have normal skin. But normal skin is if you don't have oil or dryness. The second thing you need to know when looking for that perfect foundation for you is what your skin tone is. And there's generally 3 skin tones: warm, cool, and neutral. So you're probably asking yourself, how the heck do I know what my skin tone is? Okay, I'm gonna help out here a little bit. Turn your wrist around, look on the inside of your wrist, and look at your veins. What color do you see? If you see mainly purplish, bluish veins, you're probably cool. If you look at your veins and you see greenish olive colors, then you're probably warm. But when you look at your veins and you see both blue and green, then you're neutral. That's what I am. I'm neutral. So another way to figure this out, think about whenever you go into the sun. Do you immediately burn and that's it? You burn? Then usually people with cool undertones tend to burn and burn only. If you go out in the sun and you immediately tan and don't ever burn, that's typical of somebody with a warm undertone. But like me, I go out in the sun and I get a little bit of a burn, but then that burn turns to a tan. That usually means you have a neutral undertone. And another thing that I would suggest is to take all your makeup off, get in some natural light, and look at your face. Whenever you look at your face, do you see mainly pink tones? That would mean that you're cool. But if you see some yellow, that probably means you're warm. And if you see a little bit of both, like me, I can see both pink and yellow on certain parts of my face, that means you're neutral. You need to know that there's different foundation types, and I know this is a little bit obvious, but they're coming out with new ones every single day. So the first type is a liquid foundation, and this is the most popular. This is what you see most often. Here's an example of liquid. It usually comes with the pump, not always, but usually. And when you put it on your hand, it's a liquid consistency. The next type of foundation that you might have seen out there is a powder foundation. Not a setting powder, not a finishing powder, but an actual powder foundation. This is an example. It's usually going to be a little more thick. It's buildable. It gives you a little more coverage than just a setting or a finishing powder. That's a powder foundation. The next type, and I don't have an example here with me, I left it in the other room, is a tinted moisturizer or a BB cream or a CC cream. Basically, these products, they usually have skincare ingredients in them. When you apply them to the skin, they're kind of creamy, liquidy, and they're usually good for the skin. You can use those as a foundation base. And finally, the last type of foundation that you've probably seen out there is a cream foundation in the form of a stick. I know those are really popular right now. I've even seen a balm foundation out right now. The fourth thing that you need to know when you're looking for that perfect foundation just for you is that foundations have different types of coverage. One type of coverage is sheer or light coverage. That means when you put this on, you can see your skin underneath the foundation. This may be a BB or a CC or a tinted moisturizer. You're still going to see some of the redness and imperfections that you have under your skin. The next type of coverage for a foundation is a medium coverage, which when you put on a medium coverage foundation, it's going to be more than a light coverage, but you still can see some of your skin and skin imperfections underneath the foundation. And finally, the last type of coverage that you'll see is a full coverage foundation. That means when you put that sucker on, you're covering everything up. Full coverage foundations tend to be a little more heavy. Not always though, not always. I'm trying out one right now, the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Foundation, which claims to be a full coverage foundation. And it is, it covers all of your flaws, but it still gives you kind of a dewy glowiness that I absolutely love. This is the first day for me to try this one and I'm loving it. I really am. A sheer foundation, like I said, that's going to be your BB, CC creams. Most of the time, a lot of the times though, I've seen some of those give some really good coverage. Like for me, the It Cosmetics CC cream, that gives me some amazing coverage. With medium, I have one here, one of my favorites of all time, and this is actually a drugstore, the L'Oreal Infallible Up to 24-Hour Fresh Wear Foundation. This is a medium foundation. It's wonderful, guys. The next thing that you need to know about foundations whenever you're looking for the one that's perfect for you is that there's different finishes of foundation. The first one is a dewy, glowy finish, and I actually have one. This is the Clinique Even Better Glow, another one of my favorite foundations, but it has the word glow in it. Typically, they're gonna have the word glow, dewy, things like that when you're looking at these different types of foundations that are dewy and glowy. And whenever you apply one of these foundations, your skin's just gonna look youthful. You're gonna have that glow about you and a little bit of dewiness. It's not really dewy, but it looks dewy. Fabulous. It's all the rage right now. The next type of foundation finish is a luminous finish, or it might be called a radiant finish. That means when you put this foundation on, you are highlighted. You have that glow, and that dewiness is amped up a tad bit. The next type of finish, which I think is my favorite right now, is a natural finish. Whenever you put on a foundation that has a natural finish, it's gonna look like your skin, but better. When you look in the mirror, or not always when you look in the mirror, but it may look like you're really not wearing any foundation, which I love that. And the final foundation finish that I want to talk about is a matte finish. This is probably one, I know I'm 43, and back in the 80s and 90s and even the 2000s, us girls were all about a matte foundation. This type of finish is best for photography. It's not going to give you any flash, and it just looks like you've powdered your skin really well. So those are the different types of foundation finishes. Okay, so once you have figured out what your skin type is, what the tone of your skin is, and you know the foundation types, the foundation finishes, and the different types of coverages, the next thing that I suggest that you do is your research. Yeah, do your research on foundations. There is so much available to us now that we didn't used to have. One of my favorite websites to go to, it's called Findation.com. I'll link it down below. But you can go to this website and you can enter some of your favorite foundations and the colors that you wear, and it will give you suggestions for other foundations that you haven't tried, what your match would be in that foundation. It's a really cool website. Even on Ulta and Sephora, you can do that. Also, YouTube, guys. There are so many YouTube videos out there where influencers are trying the latest and greatest. I'm telling you, that's what I did with this Airbrush Flawless Foundation by Charlotte Tilbury. I have been waiting for my favorite influencers to try this out and let me know what they think. I love Charlotte Tilbury products, and I just don't want to fork over the money if it's not the best foundation for me. So I've watched quite a few YouTubes on it, and I finally tried it today. So do your research. There's so much information available to you that you can find. You can find what type of foundation it is. Is it a liquid? Is it powder? Whatever. You can find out the coverage. You can find out the different types of finishes. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk to you about when you are looking for your favorite perfect foundation just for you, go get a sample of it. I really didn't know that you could do this, but you can go to Dillard's, Macy's, Nordstrom, and Ulta, Sephora. You can ask for samples of different types of foundations, and they'll give you one. They'll give you like a little container and put some in there that you can take home and try out. One thing that I do want to say whenever you're trying to match your foundation is to match it to your neck, not your face. If you have a different color foundation on your face than the color of your neck, it's going to look funny. It's going to look really funny. So always match your foundation to your neck, or do like I do and pull your foundation down, apply it down on your neck. So when trying out a new foundation, I always tell myself I'm going to try this foundation for a week before I make up my mind whether I like it or not. And when trying out a new foundation, try it out in different ways. You can try it out using a foundation brush. That's what I might do on one day. The next day, I might use a makeup blender to apply the foundation. I've even been known to just apply the foundation with my fingers. One thing to note is make sure your fingers, the brush, and your sponge, your blender, are clean. Because when they're not, that can really affect the way that your makeup sits on your skin and settles down. So make sure your hands and your tools are clean. Then on a different day, like the first day, I might try the foundation out with no primer, see how it holds up during the day, and then adjust to putting maybe a primer that is specifically for pores. This one is from Covergirl, the Pore Minimizing Primer. It's a good one. Or I have one from Ulta, which is a hydrating face primer. I told you guys that I am both oily and dry, and so I have different types of primers to address those needs. But with my foundation, on different days of the week, I might do no primer, or I might try a different type of primer each day to see how the foundation works with that primer. Another thing, try it with setting powder. Or the next day, if that didn't work out for you, don't use any setting powder. Same thing with setting spray. Don't use setting spray one day. If you feel like you need it, try it out the next day. But generally, I try a foundation out for 1 week before I make that decision whether I like it or not. You can also get samples of different types of foundations in some of your subscription boxes. Like I got this one from Tarte, the Foundcealer. I got this in one of my subscription boxes. I think it was BoxyCharm. I really like this one. And there's just enough in here for me to try out to determine whether I want to buy the full-size product or not. This one from Charlotte Tilbury. I actually got this one from Sephora. I went on to place an order and I entered in a code and it sent me a sample foundation for free. And so now I'm trying this before I fork over $44 for the foundation. But I'm going to tell y'all I'm really liking it right now. So I hope this has helped you guys. I hope that you have learned a little bit about foundation, finding the right foundation for you and your skin type. I went for years of just relying on whatever the person at the makeup counter told me was best for me when I didn't really understand my skin type or my undertone, and I didn't understand the different types of foundation and their coverages and their finishes. And now that I do understand those things, I can look at the new foundations that come out and say, yep, that one's not good for me. Or, ooh, I'd like to try that one. I think that would be good for me. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe and ring that little bell. That way you're notified anytime I put up a new video. Thanks again, guys, for joining me, and I hope that you have a great week. Bye.